The main misconception, I had been driving since I was 18 and I had driven through very dangerous roads in Peru and I had driven across America. I had actually driven solo from California all the way to like, well, Cleveland and then Houston, Texas. So I thought, I know how to drive, but that is misconception number one. They don't really test you whether you can drive. That's kind of the bare minimum. It is if you are a safe driver and safe within the understanding of UK driving laws. I had my partner who he's from the UK and he had passed his driving test, so he could be sitting in the car, and he had passed it many years ago because there has to be a minimum years if you find someone who has a license and they have it for many years, then they can be your kind of co-pilot, and you need to get your insurance for the car, that is for a provisional learner, and which supposedly is more expensive than the other one, but insurance is another topic. But the thing was that he became really annoying and specific about every single little thing, and I thought he was exaggerating. Fast forward, and I passed my driving test at the third time, which was very humbling. But I think I'm gonna share all of the stuff that did not work for me so that you can save yourselves, because I think it's 60 pounds per test and all the time and energy and effort. So save yourselves all of that and do the best test that you can. So there's the theory test, and then from when I took it, you have like 2 years to then pass your practical driving test. So for the theory test, my advice was like what I did was I downloaded the app, but I also was super extra and I bought the books. So I was reviewing constantly and I read through everything. And I was like actually learning all these different like crossings and all the squiggly lines on the floor and the different signs and all those, as you should. But I know a lot of people do cramming, so that means that they, before the exam, they go through everything and just like kind of immerse their brain, just put their brain into a bucket of all the information, just absorb everything. And what I did, because I had been learning for so many months and I felt really confident because I was doing a lot of practice tests and I was passing them. So I was like, okay, I actually know this. So the last 3 days before the test, which is when you probably would be cramming, I kind of took back, like I was like, no, no, it's fine, let's relax, I know this. It was kind of like I was treating it as an audition, I think, a little bit. I don't even know if that's the right way to do it. But then when I did the theory test, I like passed first time, but also like there was, to be fair, I there's like two sections, or like from I remember the theory of like there's I think it's like multiple choice, but then there's also the hazard awareness test, which I'm hoping they've changed that, because hazard perception, that awareness, it's like you see videos and you can find all of them. Please find all of them and watch all of them, because that is the best way to pass. And like try just like test them, like test yourself, and it's because you have to click not the first time that you see, like say if the camera is driving, you see on this road, and then suddenly you see like a horse. It's not the first time that you see the horse, but it's like if the horse is like entering, what I mean? Or like a lorry or something. And so that's a tricky bit because it's so subjective. I would say that if you're the fast, the first time that you see something that's going to interrupt your way, whether it's like a pedestrian or something, you click it, and then that means you're extra aware. But what the video says is that, yeah, it has to be at the right time. So that I think should be changed, because I think the faster you're aware of it, faster you would like then take action in the appropriate time. But what they're measuring is like when would you take kind of appropriate action, I'd imagine. So anyway, that it was the one that I I passed, but just barely. So I would say definitely cramming seems to be a good idea, and the main focus would be the hazard awareness videos if they're still having them. So check. The other thing is that apparently they keep changing the test very frequently. So try to get the materials to study that is the latest material, so that you're not studying something that won't be there, or that you are studying the new stuff that they're going to put in. And then the day of the test, I was building, there was people waiting. You have like a locker to put your stuff in, and then you just go in. You have I used up pretty like a lot of my time just because there were a couple questions I wasn't fully sure. So I was like, really, really, really going back and forth to see if I could get some sort of divine inspiration and try to remember. But some people stayed there longer and some people stayed there shorter. And I believe they tell you right then and there as well at the end. But yeah, then the practical driving test. For the practical driving test, as I mentioned, they are testing how safe you are as a driver. So my main piece of advice would be to try to be on the road as much as possible. And why do I say and to be on the road as much as possible with someone who really knows the rules in and out. So a driving instructor or someone like my partner who's like very, very aware of every single driving test, driving like road sign and stuff. And I think someone from the UK, they have grown up here. So they have spent their whole lives understanding how the roads work, how safe driving is in the country, what the signs are about, and it's just normal for them. And so for them, it's I think a little bit easier. But if you have them as a driving, like a co-pilot or driving partner, then I think yeah, at least that for me was the really defining factor that really helped me pass the test because the first two times that I was doing the driving test, my partner was abroad and I was with a driving instructor, and I'll narrate, like, explain what were the things that I did bad that could be preventable. So the first driving test, because there was such a backlog, so this was after the pandemic, right? There were so many people trying to pass the driving test. So you could only find a driving test slot. Like I found it in Northampton, was it? Like very far away from London. I think it's like a 2-hour drive. And I found it really early in the morning, so we had to, like, leave extra early as well, and, it was, like, in December, and, eh and so it was far away, I had never been there before. I was driving the morning of, and what else happened? It was just like you because I'm telling you, like, the whole point is to be very, very familiar with the area that you're in. So ideally, you could pass the test anywhere. But for someone who has been born and raised in a specific village and they do the test in that village, they know the roads like so well. So they have that extra advantage. So I couldn't get a driving test near London because they were all like fully booked. So that's the one that I chose. And yeah, I really believe it went down to just me literally visiting the area for the first time. And I think if you're driving through any new area, especially as a new driver in a different country, it's probably not the you're not doing yourself many favors in that. But I also, and this is my very personalized Alessandra Rodriguez, this is my heart to heart kind of th- secret that I would like to add. But I felt it was kind of subjective. I really feel like whether the examiner likes you or not plays a role because the second time that we were doing the test, it was in Crowley. Actually, the driver instructor, I wanted to send a message after it because, I mean, he said he failed me, like, as soon as we left because there was, like, a road that goes it's, like, 50, and I didn't accelerate to 50, and it's not to blame other people. Again, I had been driving a little bit with my driving instructor in the area, like, I think an hour before the test, but I really don't think that's, like, looking back, obviously, I wouldn't have done that, but also my driving instructor had been like, "Go slow, remember, they can't really fault you for going slow," and I think, and all driving all the way, I drove from, like, London to Crawley, and he'd been like, please drive slowly," and I wanted to pass it, like, in the car that I had gotten for myself, but anyway, I'm just saying, like, extra thing that maybe is relevant or not, but I think it helps if it's your car that you feel really comfortable in, and yeah, so because it's the one that you've been practicing all the time as well, so that's what I would recommend, but the reason why it was not a good driving test experience the second time is because the driving instructor was, like, so bored out of his mind, and I thought it was kinda disrespectful because you're still paying that 60 quid for the, I don't know, 15 minutes. I don't know how 20, 40, however long the driving test is. And I felt like, he even said hello to, like, someone else. I was, like, a bit, like, concerned of, like, "Wait, what's going on?" I didn't know if he wanted me to, like, stop or something, and so I just thought it wasn't really professional, out of, yeah, the 3 driving tests, the other 2 driving instructors, they were professional. The first one got really angry at me because I started taking notes on my phone, and she thought I was just texting, so she was like, "What's that?" And I was like, "Oh, my notes on my phone." She was like, "No, don't do it." So I, like, threw the phone, and I mean, I hadn't passed anyway, but, um, yeah, so I think it's kind of subjective because the 3rd time that I passed the test, um, I was like, I'm so unsure whether I passed it or not, but he was like, "You passed, but with some, like, minor, like, corrections and stuff that you need to do." And I was like, "What?" And I was, like, started crying, because I didn't really think that there was anything different. If anything, I felt like I had driven even better in the other one. So but I think it's just, yeah, like, in a way, that's my secret. That's my secret. That's my heart to heart. And I think it's really difficult for me to, like, talk about confrontationally sometimes because I always think, like, you never know what a person's going through. But yeah, but that's the truth. I mean, that was at least my experience. And but specifically, what did I do that did go well? I booked it in the morning at, like, 8 AM, and that's well for me because I like mornings. But also I booked it in a village, so, what does that mean? That a Saturday morning in a village meant that there were less cars on the road, and I felt better about that. The downside of villages is that you have the country lanes, and at least for me, having been born and raised in a capital city in Latin America, country lanes that you have to drive up to, like, I think 60 miles or something, um, in these, like, really windy roads, I thought it was very scary. But fortunately, I arrived the day before, and I stayed at a local, like, hotel and, or motel, I don't know what it was, and, we were just driving and driving and driving and driving and driving with my partner. Something other that I did that was really helpful for me was that, he was allowed to be in the car because he had been acting as my driving instructor, and I think this is okay. I mean, they asked him if he wanted to sit down, and I was like, "Yes, please." And just having his calming presence in the car made me feel more at ease, I think, as well. And there's certain rules, like they told him, you can't make any gestures, any like kind of signals and stuff. And so he was so scared that he would like mess it up for me that he was just like looking out the window like the whole test. But yeah. And then the last thing I would say is roundabouts. If you're Peruvian or from Lima, like myself, I remember that in Peru, roundabouts, you kind of drive in like defensiva, like, guarding yourself from like other drivers, but also like no one's gonna give you like space to go in. So you have to kind of inch your car in to be allowed through. And a roundabout is like wherever there's space, you just go in. Whereas in the UK, you have to wait, always wait for traffic coming in from the right. And also, there are specific lanes that you have to be in depending on which exit you're getting off at, and also the corresponding like turn signal, and also a specific kind of safe speed limit. So slow, but not too slow. And all these things, for me, roundabout was the most difficult thing. Also, just make sure that you practice like your parking and I would say that's pretty much it. Best of luck. You're gonna do great. Remember, it's not about whether you can drive because I was super like, this is so easy. I love driving. Let's do this. This is about really being the best safe driver you can be. And if anything, although I'm now more stressed out than ever from driving here, I think I'm gonna get more confident hopefully as I go, because otherwise I used to be able to drive for hours and hours and hours, and now I need breaks because I get, like, so scared of, like, doing something bad, but that's on me. But I will say that it has definitely made me a much, much, I feel very good about my driving now, and I think that's the whole point. I think I wish in a way. I understand that the public transport system is so good here that you're not missing out if you don't really have a car, um, unless you might want to do some, specific drives. But in Peru, whereas I think like a lot of things you kind of have to drive to make your life a little bit easier. But I would say, yeah, that I'm waffling now. Sorry, it's like 11 p.m. But yeah, I would say that I kind of wished that everybody in the world was going through an exam like this, because I think we would reduce the amount of accidents. I think personally, the wildest driving I've seen that I didn't expect to, because I think driving in Peru is like sardines and everybody's just kind of going with the flow. It's kind of like arriving on time in Lima. It's like, what is time? You know? And I think you connect to the consciousness of the society, and you're like, I have a feeling about this time. It's like, how do you meet up with people if you're not on time? But we just did. We just made it work. And so but I was driving in Houston, and that was so I remember there was this car that had, like, it was just, like, metal frames, like, there was, like, no doors or ceiling or anything, and it was literally weaving as if it was surfing in highway, and it would get off at an exit and then come back into the highway just because it would be faster than staying on the highway, and no signaling. I was like, okay. So, I think we can do better than that here in the UK. So, all the best. I know you're gonna do great, and, all the best vibes as well. I hope you get a driving instructor that has a huge heart and obviously is gonna do the right thing whether you pass or not, but I think that makes a huge difference. Bye. I'm sure they're going through a lot, and it's probably annoying to be a test driver. It's probably, like, really, really horribly difficult and stuff, and so, I guess thank you to the examiners for doing such an important job, and in particular, thank you to the one who passed me. He's really cool. He has got a band as well, so, yeah. Gosh, can I get I wish did I write down his band? I need to look for it because it sounded really cool. Okay, bye.